What's up, guys? I want to talk a little bit about the game that we saw today between Denmark and England. It was the second semifinal of the European Championships 2020, even though this is actually 2021. And look, there weren't that many changes going, starting with the initial lineups. I'm gonna share my screen with you guys here really quickly, just so we can look at the lineups, and it was pretty much par for the course. I mean, it was just as expected. Denmark didn't really change anything, and in England's side, really the only big change, or the only change I should say, was the return of Bukayo Saka for Jadon Sancho, which wasn't a change that I was particularly pleased with. I thought that Jadon Sancho had actually been a breath of fresh air for England. I mean, he had been daring, unpredictable. He brought in kind of flair that we hadn't seen from England before, and which is really what he usually does for Dortmund. So I was a little bit upset not to see Sancho starting. In any case, we got Saka, who's also a great player, and everybody was, other than Sancho, was back from the game against the Ukraine. In England, they were a little bit disappointing today, even though they won, but we'll get to that. But I have to say, I was mostly impressed with Denmark, actually. Yes, England had perhaps somewhat more chances. They were a little bit more dangerous. Yes, they carried the weight of the game a little bit more. But they're England, and they were playing at home in front of 60,000 people or so at Wembley. They were by far the favorites. They have certainly more talent they had more talent on the pitch than Denmark, and on the bench. I mean, they did what they were expected to do, and actually they didn't do enough. Damsgaard scored the first free kick in the tournament, the first free kick goal in the tournament, and it was really a masterpiece. I mean, it was beautiful. This kid Damsgaard, he essentially came into the team to replace Christian Eriksen, and he's perhaps the biggest revelation of the tournament, the breakout star of the tournament. You could also make that argument, and perhaps you should make that argument for Pedri, who's been fantastic for Spain throughout the tournament. But we already kind of knew that from watching him at Barcelona throughout the season, So I think Damsgaard kind of like, he came out of left field. Nobody really knew about this kid, and he's just been sensational with Denmark. In any case, that was a fantastic goal, and that goal put Denmark in front. And but England was able to equalize eventually, and it was an own goal by which was a little bit unfortunate. It seemed at first that it was a goal by Sterling, which would have been a little bit better. I don't know if officially they're giving it to Sterling, but probably not. It's going to be an own goal, probably, I'm guessing, against Kyer, Denmark's captain, who's also been, fantastic. He was fantastic in that first match, in the incident with Christian Eriksen, consoling his Eriksen's girlfriend, and he's been acting like a captain throughout the tournament. And you just see like the leadership that emanates from him, and also Kasper Schmeichel. So it was a little bit unfortunate for him to score that own goal, even though, I mean, it was a legitimate. He tried to defend the low cross, and he ended up putting in the back of his net. That's actually something that we've already seen happen in this tournament a couple of times, especially in the game Portugal against Germany. It happens, but really the big moment in the game was certainly the penalty kick, which was not, frankly, it was not a penalty kick, and it's just outrageous. I was just looking at the highlights of the game on ESPN, just like to refresh my memory before making this video, because it's been like 2 hours since the game ended. And they didn't even show how ridiculous is that? How ridiculous is that they don't even show the lead up to the penalty kick? I don't know why ESPN wasn't showing it in the highlights that I just saw, but other than the possibly the fact that they were embarrassed to even show it, because it simply wasn't a penalty. And it's kind of a glaring mistake, actually. I mean, Sterling certainly dives in that. I mean, maybe there was a little bit of contact, but certainly not enough to to call that a foul. I mean, it was an obvious dive by Sterling. And look, in real time, it might be difficult for the referee to catch that. You know, he was very close. There were two Danish players surrounding him. It was a very fast play. There was perhaps even a little bit of contact, but certainly not enough to be a penalty. But he certainly dives. And it's just, I understand why the referee would maybe get that wrong. What I don't understand is why VAR doesn't come in and correct that and tell the referee, well, at least you need to have a look at that, because I think if they do, the referee is going to see that's a dive and it's not going to be a penalty kick. And you know, this was already extra time. The game would have dragged out to the penalty kicks, and you know, who knows what could have happened. You know, we could have Denmark in the final. We could be talking about a big upset, Denmark beating England. And look, don't get me wrong, I kind of wanted England to win, just to see a great match in the final. You know, Italy versus England is certainly, in my opinion, a better match than Italy versus Denmark. England is certainly going to bring in more talent, more big players, more big names than Denmark would to the final. And I want to see a great final to this European Championship. But I didn't want to see it this way. I didn't want to see it happen this way. I think it's a little bit of a travesty, and it doesn't feel fair, you know, because Denmark, yes, they didn't play a great game, but they did their best, and their best was pretty good. I mean, they were extremely well organized. You know, Damsgaard scored that goal, which was really a masterpiece. They defended fairly well. England didn't have that many clear chances. They had a couple that they could have scored, but not that many. I mean, Denmark did a pretty good job, I think, defending. So, I mean, it's a shame that it would happen this way, that we would see. And, you know, maybe if you watch this video, let me know if you think I'm wrong. Let me know if you think it's a penalty and I'm completely off base here, but I don't think so. I mean, I looked at the scene and at the play, and I mean, it was in my opinion, in my view, from the angles that I saw, even though I couldn't see it in the highlights that I just watched because ESPN decided not to show it, but I saw it enough times to say that clearly looks like a dive to me. And I think if the referee had looked at those same images, I think he would have taken it back. I don't think that would have been a penalty. So it really feels unfair to me, and I feel bad also because, you know, Denmark. Obviously, we all know about the Christian Eriksen thing, you know, and they had to struggle in order to get back into the tournament after those two initial defeats. I think it's unfortunate. I think it's very unfortunate that we would get this kind of resolution to a game that was actually not a bad game. It was an exciting game in Wembley with a big crowd, you know, with the home team. Playing basically for neutrals, you know, the favorite team of the tournament in Denmark. It was an exciting game, and I just don't understand. I think VAR. I understand that it needs to be a clear and obvious error, but I think the way they're using that, at least in this case, I mean, it's a complete travesty because. First of all, it does seem like it's a clear and obvious error, and also maybe the bar should be a little bit lower. Yes, you don't intervene, you don't tell the referee to come look at it if it's just like a minor thing, but if it's a penalty, and you know the decision, there's obviously some sort of uncertainty. I mean, you got to tell the referee. I mean, at the end of the day, the main referee should make that decision. The main referee should decide if it's a penalty or not whoever's looking at the image, you know, whoever's in charge of VAR thinking, well, is this a clear and obvious error? That shouldn't be the decision. If there is a question, a real question, you know, they should bring in the referee and tell him, look at those images. What do you think? Is that a penalty or not? And I'm pretty sure, I'm 90% sure the referee would have taken that back. That should not have been a penalty. That was not a penalty. And Kasper Schmeichel even saved it. and then on the rebound, Harry Kane was able to score, which is also unlucky for Denmark. So I just think it's a little bit of a shame. I don't think most neutrals will be pleased with this game. I think we're all gonna end up with kind of like a big, unless you're English. I mean, it kind of leaves a bitter taste in your mouth, and it's a shame that this would happen. But with that being said, again, I think it was a big mistake by VAR. I think it's a travesty. I think basically it's a robbery. I don't think it was necessarily intentional. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying they're corrupt or anything, but I do think it was a terribly poor decision by the VAR team, especially by the referee, but especially by the VAR team. And I think they should review that rule and maybe change that phrasing, or at least interpret it in a different way, so we don't get these situations. So this doesn't happen again anytime soon. Hopefully not in the final either. Now, speaking of the final, very quickly, I'll probably do a video for, kind of like previewing the final. But very quickly, I just want to say, regardless of how England got there, they've had a good tournament. They hadn't conceded a single goal before the Damsgaard goal, which was a beautiful free kick, and there was really no way to stop that. Other than that, I mean, they've been extremely solid. They haven't conceded. They don't really play great football, to be honest with you. With the kind of talent they have, I don't think they found a way to really play beautiful attacking football like they probably should with the kind of talent they have on the pitch. But they've been getting the job done. They haven't been fantastic unless except for the game against the Ukraine. They haven't been fantastic, but they've been good. They've been good enough. They weren't good enough today against Denmark. They really won because of that terrible decision. If not, they wouldn't have won. They weren't good enough against Scotland, which is a team that is much inferior to England. They weren't able to beat Scotland either, but they haven't conceded goals. They haven't lost any matches. So, and they have more talent than Italy. They play at home. I certainly have to give England a bit of an advantage. Italy wasn't that good against Spain, in my opinion. I think Spain should have won that game. They did get some chances in the counterattack, some breaks. Chiesa was good. He was able to get a goal for Italy. Italy defended fairly well. Spain, to be honest, they had a lot of possession, but it's not like in typical Spain fashion, they didn't really do a whole lot with it. But I think Spain was still better in that game. I think Italy was a little bit lucky to go through, obviously, very lucky even, with the penalties. But they had a very good tournament. Italy is now riding a streak of 16 wins in these European Championships, 10 in the qualifiers, 6 in the finals, and 16 wins. At the end of the day, 16 wins in 16 games leading into the final. I think, especially after what happened today, I think it would be a little bit more fitting if Italy won. At least to me, but I do think that England is probably going to be able to do it, at home in front of their fans, with certainly more quality in the team, and again, the home advantage, I think, might prove decisive. Also, they have a much better bench. If this goes into extra time, the final goes into extra time again. I think just like we saw in so many games in this Euro Cup, the team, especially with this, you have this new rule of the substitutions. You have several substitutions. The team that has a better bench usually gets a pretty considerable advantage in extra time. We even saw that against in the Italy game. Against Spain, Spain had a much better, deeper bench than Italy, and that was reflected in the quality of the game. In extra time, Spain was much better. I think it would be a similar situation if they go to extra time against England. So I see England winning this, but I think it's going to be a close game, and ultimately, I think hopefully we'll see a great game of football. Anyways. I'm sorry, Denmark. I think we're all a little bit disappointed because, this shouldn't have been a game. This shouldn't have been a tie decided by terribly poor VAR decision and referee decision. So it's a shame, but it is what it is.